Versus Dave and Bambi. Everyone probably knows Versus Dave and Bambi is probably one of the most infamous Friday Night Funkin' mods of all time. But how did Versus Dave and Bambi begin? Well, today I'm gonna teach you. Here is my video on Versus Dave and Bambi. Versus Dave and Bambi, how one mod introduced a whole bunch of new things to the FNF community. This is an overlook of Versus Dave and Bambi. How the mod began all the way back in December, November of 2020, as I pinpoint this as the very first mod that ever introduced an original character or introduced a character from a separate game entirely. To really explain Versus Dave and Bambi, we have to look at Dave. Dave originates from a Baldi's Basics mod made back in 2019, known only by the eponymous title of Dave's Fun Algebra class. In Dave's Fun Algebra class, you go to Dave's algebra class, more or less Dave's school. In this school, you have to collect 7 notebooks, as any Baldi's Basics mod would do. All the characters are replaced with Dave's friends. Diamond Man, who replaces Arts and Crafters. Play Robot, who replaces Playtime. Alien Monitor, who replaces Principal of the Thing. Garrett, who is a character from another Baldi's Basics mod known as Garrett's Funny Animal Game. And last but certainly not least, there are a few more, such as the Sleeping Room, I guess. Then you have a black stick figure with red eyes and a red mouth that replaces Foul Name 2. You play as an eponymous character who wanders across our last main figure, Dave. Dave is wheelchair bound, and Dave is said by MoldyGH to be at least somewhere around 25 and 26 years old. Also, yeah, I'm laying the Versus Dave and Bambi mod run here. Anyways, after you complete Dave's Fun Algebra class, yeah, that's about it. Anyways, Dave would get another Baldi's Basics mod, this time known as Dave's House. In Dave's House, you play as Dave's adoptive son, Tristan. Tristan is a 6-year-old who spends his time in school, like most children. Dave's house is, well, located in who knows where. Now, upon Tristan getting home, Dave surprises Tristan with his birthday. And Dave has left 9 presents for Tristan to find. However, get the 2 gifts and Dave is a bit angry with you. Anyways, Tristan now must attempt to escape Dave's house while coming across 3 of Dave's friends who will patrol the perimeters of the entire household. Upon escaping Dave's house, that's about it. Dave's house isn't really much. There is a mailbox outside, but I doubt it's anything else. Then, Dave's Fun Algebra class will get a sequel, titled Dave's Fun Algebra Class 2, the sequel. In it, a whole host of new characters, mostly just all the returning characters except modified. Dave also receives a robot suit, something that is mentioned in Versus Dave and Bambi Golden Apple in the song Wireframe, and is clearly shown in that song. Nice little touch of reference. Versus Dave and Bambi began as simply just Versus Dave. Now, Versus Dave and Bambi has gone through 1 pre-alpha, 9 alphas, 3 separate betas, and at least 4 separate versions: 1.5, 1.0, 1.5, 2.0, and 2.5. With MoldyGH stating on his YouTube community post and on his Discord that Dave and Bambi is getting a 3.0 update that will include Splitathon 2, a song that is said to be an hour long. Now, Versus Dave originally only had 2 songs, House and Insanity. Insanity used to sound a lot more different than what it is now. Old Insanity basically was just the same pattern repeated over and over again, just spiced up halfway through the song. And Bambi wasn't introduced until Rapper Rap Lol's Rapper Rap's LOL's versus Dave Bambi over Boyfriend mod was introduced a month before Bambi was brought into the mod officially. When Bambi was brought in, it was announced as the versus Bambi update. Not only did Bambi get added, and Bambi had 2 extra songs, the mod got 2 extra songs, Supernova and Glitch, originating from Guitar Hero fan game Clone Hero, which is a popular Guitar Hero style game in which Clone Hero is run by the community. Moldy GH had actually composed tracks on Clone Hero before in the past, which allows Moldy now brings his talent of making tracks on Clone Hero to bring it to FNF. When the Bambi update was introduced, when Bambi update wasn't around, there was no third song in the Dave week. When Bambi update was introduced, a third song was introduced into the third Dave week. A third song was introduced into the Dave week, known as Ferocity. Ferocity was a spammy song, and this is where I like to point to. I think Versus Dave and Bambi was the mod that truly popularized spamming songs in the FNF community. Something we clearly see nowadays with more recent FNF mods at least having one spam-filled song. Versus Dave and Bambi also popularized the notion of really hard songs with difficult hooks to get into. And this is definitely aware in the older versions of Versus Dave and Bambi, where Insanity used to be very different. Originally, Dave was just a completely white daddy dearest, except for the belt, which was still yellow, and the red eyes. This is known. The version of Dave that was just daddy dearest but all white is known as Pre-Alpha Dave, and appears in Versus Dave and Bambi Golden Apple in one of my favorite songs the FNF community has spawned, the song OG. Now, in Versus Dave and Bambi, the first week is Dave's fun rapping class. Upon Dave entering the rapping world of FNF, but the title of the first week is also a little reference to Dave's fun algebra class. A neat little detail I noticed that most people that played the mod, like me, had overlooked. In more recent updates of Versus Dave and Bambi, in the more modern version of Insanity, in the song Insanity, during the halfway point, Dave will glitch out into his 3D form. The 3D form wasn't always there. Ferocity's first iteration of an angry Dave was literally Dave just drawn all red, having a glitchy effect over him, and his icon would burst into a fireball. The second version was just regular Dave except color red. Alpha 6 through Alpha 9 was the first time people saw a 3D model used in FNF. And Alpha 6 and Alpha 9 of Versus Dave and Bambi was the first time 3D models had ever been used in Friday Night Funkin'. And this is what I like to think is that Versus Dave and Bambi is the mod that popularized the use of 3D models in FNF mods. We see this all the time now in mods like Hotline 024 and Versus Sonic.exe and multiple other mods that use 3D models for one song. But Versus Dave and Bambi was the first mod to introduce a 3D model being used in a song, and it was funnily enough in the exact same final song, Ferocity. Now, Dave's 3D model went through updates. Originally, Dave's first 3D model was him standing up. However, this was quickly corrected in the 1.0 and 1.5, where Dave is now correctly in his wheelchair. The model also went through a bit of changes. Soon, Ferocity Dave would enter this pose and will later get a more balanced touch-up in 2.5, but we'll get to that later. Defeating Ferocity, it would lead to an ending. In Versus Dave and Bambi, upon being the Dave week, there are at least 4 endings you can obtain. It's all based on the accuracy. The good ending, which is obtained by gaining an accuracy of 80% or more, or 70% or more. The bad ending, which is gaining an accuracy of 60% or lower. And lastly, the worst ending, which is obtained by gaining an accuracy of 30% or lower. The rare RTX ending is a reference to the RTX graphics modulator for certain games that functions real-time shadows and beautiful, almost realistic graphics in the games. The RTX ending goes in a different route and says that because everything's 3D, now the world runs at 1 frame per second. Damn, should've got a memory storage card. In the good ending, it says, you beat Dave and kept your dignity as well. What a funny quote. Now, there are different images depending on the endings you get. I'm not going to show all them. Now, a perfect run is what gets the good ending. However, by having your health bar all the way down, even on a higher accuracy, you'll just get the bad ending. You know the requirement I told you to get the bad ending? Well, lol, I was just kidding. There is another way to get the bad ending, even if you have a high accuracy, and that's to miss the final long note on Ferocity. The last note in Ferocity, if you miss it, you need to have your health at least under halfway. By having your health under halfway, you get the worst ending, in which Dave flips you the middle finger and takes the girlfriend with him. Upon being versus Dave, that's where it ended. However, there are differences, because eventually we get to Bambi's week. Bambi might have one of my most favorite songs. Originally, there was never any dialogue specified in versus Dave and Bambi's Bambi week. Originally, the week contained Supernovea, Glitch, and then finally Blocked. However, after the Bambi update, things were modified, and eventually Blocked became the first song of the Dave and Bambi week. And then eventually 2 new songs would eventually replace Glitch and Supernovea. Those songs being Corn Theft and Maze. Maze originally had a much more different tone, with Maze having repeating verses over and over again until halfway through. Corn Theft was just the same pattern of notes repeated over and over. Originally, Bambi's voice was even more different. Bambi's voice seemed like a more prototype version of the voice that Bambi is more known for today. This prototype voice is missing, however, Dave and Bambi versus Dave and Bambi 2.5 added an old section where you can play the older versions of existing Dave and Bambi songs. This includes Old Insanity from the Dave week, but this also includes Old Corn Theft and Old Maze from the 1.0 and Beta 2 version of versus Dave and Bambi, before the mod was even public around the time. Blocked had to be my most favorite song. It's mostly in the instrumental. Damn, that instrumental slaps. Anybody agree with me that Old Blocked is probably one of the best songs that has ever been made in the FNF community? Like, I unironically loved Old Block. Old Block definitely gives me a 2000s feeling, when music used to be so unique. Oh my goodness, my favorite part. It's my favorite. Also, yes, I know I haven't uploaded in a while. Please don't judge. And yes, there is cursing and I'm not appalled. Also, versus Dave and Bambi's Blocked, the Old Blocked was definitely the song that popularized spamming songs. I said Old Insanity popularized spamming songs, and Ferocity even hit that further, but the old version of Blocked is what definitely hit the hardest into popularizing spamming songs. I guess you can credit Old Block for starting the trend of spammy FNF songs, with some of the more recent versus Dave and Bambi fan-made mods, such as Psycho Asylum Popcorn Edition, Golden Apple Edition, Venture mod, Samsung Galaxy mod, and multiple other versus Dave and Bambi fan mods like Hellscape, Purgatory, and Bambi's Funky Night, among many more on the FNF Wiki's versus Dave and Bambi fan-made mods on the FNF Wiki. Trust me, there's a fuck ton, and you're not gonna get through it all. There are way too many characters. And this is FNF in its purest. No, but hold on. This is what I mean. That bam. Damn. Yeah, I know this part is repetitive. Come on. It just slaps. Like, it sounds epic. This is what made me love Old Block. And then this happens. A complete change up in the rhythm. It all of a sudden wants to be like a Friday Night Funkin' Neo mod. And I love this part. It's so good. Ah, yes. And this is what Bambi used to be. Bambi was just originally Joke Bambi. Yes, this is what this character is referred to by the FNF community. Joke Bambi, as according to one YouTube channel. Anyways, this is Joke Bambi. Joke Bambi originally sang Block before the new version of Bambi came along. The Bambi we're more familiar with. Bambi, Bambi, Bambi. Or Mr. Bambi, as versus Dave and Bambi would like to argue with. And then this ending part of Old Block. This is what I loved about Block. The instrumental was just my favorite. And then this. And then versus Dave and Bambi, we get the 2.5 update. The version 2.5 update was the biggest update versus Dave and Bambi got back in November of 2021. It was a massive update that overhauled a ton of things about versus Dave and Bambi. Fixed up the Bambi engine, the Dave and Bambi engine, a modified Cade engine on 1.2. That's surprising because how does it still work? And apparently 3D models are intended to be added to Psych engine because this mod popularized it. However, version 2.5 of versus Dave and Bambi changed a lot of things. First off, ferocity, which began back in the Bambi update and continued all the way to version 2.0, was replaced with polygonized. Polygonized was definitely more epic. And polygonized was definitely the right choice that Moldy GH went to go for this song. Polygonized was even more epic than ferocity. But for those people that still want to play Ferocity, it is in the free play menu. And Ferocity is located under the main songs of the versus Dave and Bambi free play menu, under the category of main songs. And Ferocity is also located right underneath Polygonize, in case anyone wants to play Polygonize and Ferocity back to back. Now Polygonize is a hell of an awesome song. Not only that, but version 2.5 of versus Dave and Bambi also introduced heavy flashing lights, which probably caused some people some seizures, but the flashing lights made it even more epic. Like, god damn! This is some epic stuff right here. But then in came New Block. version 2.5 in my eyes, version 2.5 completely ruined Blocked. Now, while the vocals were still the same from version 2.0, Blocked suffered a massive downgrade in my eyes. I mean, sure, it still slaps, and version 2.5's Blocked still keeps some of the charm the original Blocked had, but the instrumental, I find it kind of boring. I mean, the instrumental just sounds like someone is smacking metal pipes against metal bars. Like, do you want an FNF song that has really good instrumentation that reminds you of your younger years in the 2000s? Or do you want a song that just sounds like generic rock music with metal pipes being banged? Like it's Metallica's Saint Anger. I think I would rather pick the version of Blocked that takes me back to the 2000s and reminds me of my younger years of listening to some good-ass music. This doesn't qualify as classic in my eyes. Sure, it might say Blocked, but versus Dave and Bambi OSTs labeled this as new Blocked. So yeah, it's up for your grabs. You want to call this just Blocked, or you want to use the definitions that most YouTubers most FNF YouTubers do with the OSTs. Divide the original Blocked with the new Blocked as just new Blocked, and the original Blocked as old Blocked. And then they completely mess up the finale. They mess up the end. Moldy messed up the ending. As I made a YouTube post comment, I want the old Blocked to return in 3.0. Maybe add old Blocked. Maybe add the original version, like the old Here's my idea for Moldy. Maybe add the old Blocked in the old section of the free play menu, because old Blocked fits in with all the old songs like Ferocity, Old Insanity, Old Corn Theft, and Old Maze. Versions of existing songs that were used before, but now don't even serve a purpose anymore, because they were replaced with what I think is much better versions, except new Blocked, because dear God. But still, old Blocked should still come back in some way. I just can't imagine versus Dave and Bambi continuing without old Blocked. That was like the main reason people played the versus Dave and Bambi mod, to play Bambi's Week and listen to the searing beats of Bambi. Bambi's Week is basically just him progressively getting more angry. Oh yeah, this slaps. Corn Theft. However, Moldy had teased on his YouTube channel. That he was making a new version of Corn Theft. In my opinion, I think this Corn Theft is the best of them all. Not only is the instrumental good, but I also think that the music, the instrumental fits with the vocals, and the instrumental definitely fits the vibe of a farmland, which is good, because this is a farm. Also, I'm pretty sure nobody noticed that Bam Farm, but underneath it says Zardy's Maze. Definitely not Bam Farm. Original idea, do not steal, even though Bambi stole it from Zardy, our favorite scarecrow, who recently came back. So yeah, it's not like everything's dead. Although I do have to say, the song gets spammy, especially halfway through it, because dear God, that's a lot of notes. But then, if you somehow persevered through Blocked, old Blocked or new Blocked, and Corn Theft, or the original Corn Theft from Beta 2, then be greeted with this amazing cutscene afterwards.
Holy shit!
I can't believe I paused it right on this face. This face just says it all on how I feel when I see versus Dave and Bambi 2.5. Damn. Now, if you're wondering why Bambi says this and why Bambi says I'm gonna break my phone, then you don't know the origins. The origins of Bambi's infamous voice clip and his voice originates from YouTuber Marcelo Time Nice 30. And originally, in older versions of Versus Dave and Bambi, attempting to press 7 would send people to the video Get Trolled. In Get Trolled, it features Moldy taunting and mocking Marcelo Time Nice 30 in an almost 18-minute Discord call. And on that Discord call, it was near the end of the almost 18-minute mocking that Marcelo eventually got to his boiling point. And Marcelo perceived that he was going to break his phone while smacking his table. All the while, he then ends off with, "Holy shit." This is what I think is what made Versus Dave and Bambi just so awesome. Using someone's voice and then sampling that and then using it as the voice of an FNF mod character. It was never heard of back then. But God, did this surprise people, especially Use Napkin, who played the older versions of Versus Dave and Bambi. I first heard about Bambi thanks to the Impossible Trio, which included Bob, but it also includes Sponge, a meme version of SpongeBob that I'll probably discuss in another time. So yeah. And it had Bambi front and center. So yeah. And then we will come to the most infamous song of Versus Dave and Bambi. The over 10-minute song coined by Moldy as Splitathon. However, since then, Splitathon has been beat by multiple songs such as Little Man 2, Aztecophobia, and Offer from the Power of Possession mod. However, as I mentioned, Splitathon 2, the upcoming sequel to Versus Dave and Bambi Splitathon. Splitathon 2 will appear in Versus Dave and Bambi 3.0, and Splitathon 2 is said to be an hour long. The original Splitathon definitely has props. The original Splitathon 1 is definitely good. Not only is it 10 minutes, but it keeps adding diversity. It starts off pretty epic, then it starts calming down, and then that's right. A remix of the very first song of Versus Dave and Bambi begins playing. This probably made some people surprised. Yeah, that's right. That's House, the first song of Dave's week playing. Originally, there's an older version of Splitathon. In the original version of Splitathon, while this part played, old Splitathon missed out two. Old Splitathon kept going with just the instrumental until hold notes began spawning in later down the road. The rest of Splitathon was the same in the old version. However, the updated version of Splitathon added 2 new sections into the song to fill in the empty sections. In old Splitathon, this is where the tapping ends, but in new Splitathon, in the new version of Splitathon, a new section was added after the house reference, the massive house reference. And this new addition and new section of Splitathon, which I like to actually call Section 3. Section 1 was the beginning, Section 2 was the house reference, but this is the new Section 3. The new Section 3 is kind of a short, more faster spammed remix of House. Taking some parts of House and then remixing it to be much more harder. Making a song that already had some difficult sections and make it even harder. Yeah. And then the new Section 4 of Splitathon. The brand new Section 4 of Splitathon. Originally, hold note. In the old version of Splitathon, there were some hold notes you had to hold down. Notes you had to hold down for a while until it reached the section 5, where Bambi jumps into the scene. But in the new version of Splitifon 1, a new section 4 was added, where now we get a sort of callback to ferocity as well as polygonize for a bit. At least I think it's supposed to be a reference to ferocity and polygonized. Nice. We're including most of Dave's songs in the finale, which is funny because week 3 is called the finale in Versus Dave and Bambi. But let me continue forward, where we meet Bambi. In section 5, we get Bambi. Bambi is a bit annoyed that we're trespassing once again. Originally, Bambi had some different verses in his sections. However, in the updated version of Splitifon, Bambi's sections in the new version of Splitifon were overhauled to be a bit more different. And Splitifon is now complete. In fact, a YouTuber known as Silly Fangirl Osu managed to full combo the original Splitifon and showed that if you full combo Splitifon, it's possible to get the score over to 1 million and possibly maybe even 2 million if it's possible to have no misses. Considering how Bambi's parts were always the most hardest, people definitely had a hard time attempting the full combo. Sure, Dave's parts were hard, but with some practice they were pretty easy. But Bambi's parts were just full-on spamming. But Silly Fangirl Osu, a YouTuber known for taking on hard FNF mods, just like Use Napkin, another prominent FNF YouTuber and popularizing tons of mods. Well, Silly Fangirl Osu was the first FNF player ever to full combo Splitifon, and the first FNF YouTuber to show that Splitifon was indeed full combo, and showed that it was over 1.5 million points that was the max score. Now here on Media Games Guide, another YouTuber showed that on a normal playthrough Splitifon, the score would be almost 1 million at 977,080 points on the score. Definitely a swag. Upon being Splitifon, that's where the mod ended. However,